Okay, so we're going to try a street epistemology experiment. We have a bunch of 3x5 cards with different claims written on them, and we're going to street epistemologize a claim.
Is this one that I need to, like, I want to agree with this, or is it okay if I totally disagree with it?
Well, I'll ask your confidence on
Got
a
it.
scale
Perfect.
of 1 to
Okay.
100, or 0 to 100.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Deb, and I'm going to ask her some questions. So Deb, what is your claim that we're going to talk about today?
Well, okay, maybe we should start this over, because I'm thinking
okay.
that I would
You
have to
pick a
defend
different
this. Yeah, I think I'd have to defend that, and I actually don't believe it.
You can be 0% on the scale, too.
Okay,
That's fine.
then honesty is the best policy.
Okay. Honesty is the best policy. That's your claim. What is your confidence that that is actually true?
Maybe 35%.
35%? What brings you to the 35% level on that?
From having practiced honesty in my life and finding that the honest people, there's no reward here, and it's the dishonest people who are getting ahead.
So is there anything that would bring your confidence up, that could bring it up from 35?
I suppose if, like particularly my newest appeal at court, if other people view this and say, no, you're not going to get away with that, that would bring it up, but it certainly wouldn't bring it to 100%.
Yeah. So it wouldn't bring it to 100% even if you were to get more confirmation from the court system about
Yes, because
being honest.
This is very widespread. So
Yeah.
the court system would, bring it up to 50% or 55%, but there's still a lot of room out there to question whether or not this is true.
Okay. Is there anything you can think of that would bring you the 35% down, make it lower, that you would think honesty is the best policy? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I think
it's a very
that-
unclear question.
I think that if I am confronted with even more evidence that it's the dishonest who get ahead at the expense of the honest, that could bring my claim down, but I would never reach 0% because there are definitely people and relationships that just can't exist without that honesty.
So that would show you that dishonesty is a better policy, kind of to go by.
Yes, that you could certainly profit more from dishonesty.
The lower your scale goes down.
Yes.
Yeah, would convince you. Yeah, that makes sense. Is there anything you can think of, an example where dishonesty has been a better policy than being honest in your life?
So far, I see other people. I don't know that I've ever used dishonesty in a way that has profited me. I'm sure I have. I mean, children lie to avoid punishment,
So do adults, right?
Yes, so do adults. Yes, absolutely. But I don't have any recollection of making conscious decisions to be honest to profit from it.
Yeah.
I've just seen this demonstrated by other people while I was following the rules and being a good girl.
Do you know what else this makes me think of? It's a little bit off topic, or it's on topic, but like, during the Holocaust and they're looking for Jews and the people are hiding, and what if they come to your door and they knock on the door and say, do you have any Jews in your house? What's a better policy?
I guess it
Being
depends
honest or lying?
That depends upon what your goal is. If your goal is to survive, then the best policy is to do whatever's going to get you there. And if your goal is to be a good person and you're willing to take risks, then by all means you lie to them about the people that you're hiding. So it depends upon your goals and what you're trying to achieve.
It does, doesn't it? Like at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Yeah. Thanks. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, just,
That's
when
really
it says,
interesting.
when it says, is the best policy, then the question becomes, the best policy to achieve what?
Right. To look at the bigger goal, maybe?
Yes.
The bigger picture, to
Yes.
see the best policy for what?
Yes.
For this circumstance, perhaps.
What do you want
but
to
perhaps
achieve?
not this other
And
circumstance.
if, depending upon what your end goal is,
Yeah.
then is honesty the best policy to get you there?
Yeah. Does this dress make me look fat?
Yes.
It's the fat that makes you look fat. No, you're gorgeous as is. No, thanks. That's really interesting. So that's basically how it works. You guys want to try one?
Yeah, sure.
Deb, do you want to ask the questions this time?
No, I'm going to let you
No?
ask them
Okay.
again.
You can pick one
I'll get
or
a little
Pick a
more
claim
into
or,
this and
or
then.
pick your own. Yeah, I'm not great at this. I'm still learning.
Do I
but
look at
No, you
them?
do not.
whatever you want.
Okay.
There's no rules here. Listen to your dad. He's the boss.
Because some of those, like, I have no information on, so I
Yeah,
can't
if
comment.
it's something you don't know anything about, it's probably more difficult.
Sage, burning blood. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Better not answer any of these
Oh.
questions wrong, Daniel.
This one.
So this is Daniel. He's choosing a claim next. Okay,
will be-
Daniel, what's the claim?
Oh, that's a
We
good
will
one.
be reincarnated when we die.
We will be reincarnated when we die. That's your claim, huh? Okay.
I'm-
How
I'm-
confident are you?
Like 25% confident because I actually don't know. Because here's the
Uh-huh.
thing. I think that maybe there's a possibility, but there could very well not be a possibility. Like,
Yeah.
but
Can you, before you go on, can you define what reincarnated means to you?
I guess to me, what it's hard for me to think about it though, because it's essentially what reincarnation is like, like usually there's, like kind of sort of an assumption. If you tend not to believe in an afterlife, what happens after you die, right?
Right.
And so it's like, what am I going to experience, right? And some philosophers have talked about, death being just non-existence. Like it's different than pleasure or pain because you won't be able to feel it. Like almost as if it's going to be a dreamless sleep. That's how some people have.
Is that what you believe?
I don't-
Personally?
I don't know, but if I were to be more confident, I would say maybe that a little more because
In reincarnation or just afterlife?
no, as neither probably,
Oh.
but I'm not actually. But the thing is that I think that very well, reincarnating when you die could very well be a sort of projection of the human mind, thinking that there must be something afterwards, right? Because we have a certain way of thinking, a certain way of viewing ourselves, and I think that might just be due to the architecture of our brains, right?
Right.
That how we're able to reason that, and the thing is if you have something that reincarnates, that you reincarnate as, how similar will that experience be? Will you even be aware that it's an experience? Like, how, like what line would you draw? Like if you reincarnated as a butterfly, it's like,
Right,
how would it even
would
remotely
we have the
compare?
same consciousness?
Exactly.
You keep your same
So,
brain, but
I'm not entirely sure, but I have a feeling that it's more likely that we might not reincarnate after we die.
So what percentage did you put yourself at?
It was like 35, but I think
35?
it's like a 25.
So it's gone down a little
It's gone
bit just
down a
after
little bit,
thinking
just
about
after
it?
thinking about it, yeah.
A little more?
Or no, because 25 is actually 1/4, so no, that's not a good amount. Like 15% maybe.
It's gone down even more.
Yeah, because I think it just has to do with because it just jogged my memory because I was thinking a lot about what certain philosophers had said.
Yeah.
And for me, it just seems like that is more of a default assumption, and it seems like it would be more removed from like what humans would project on things that are bigger than us, like
Right.
questions of the afterlife and stuff like that. Because I view like a lot of the things that we impose on the afterlife are kind of just our own sort of mental creations,
Right.
our own mental projections.
It's kind of like your own ideas about something.
Yes.
Do you think like people's hopes, like they hope
Oh,
for
yeah,
something
they
gets like
hope
mixed
for-
in maybe?
because our experience, it's something, it's something in and of itself that's, some people may have argued that human life in and of itself is, extraordinary and valuable, right? And that just has to do with, because we are what we are, we value our experience, right?
Right.
Because we are
Because we
humans,
exist.
right? It's because we exist. So we value, therefore, we value our own existence, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of, based in our biology too, like,
Absolutely.
the will to survive, evolutionarily is just something that,
Okay, Daniel, I have another question.
okay.
Is there anything that you could learn that would raise your confidence up from 15? Is that where you were?
Yeah,
Anything you could learn at all that would make it higher? That we are reincarnated.
something
Butterfly says hi in his grandma's voice.
something that might help me is probably some reason to separate the experience from my physical body, as in, so like there was a lot of, kind of, there are philosophers that believe in dualism, which is essentially that there is, a physical form that is you, and then there is some other ethereal, kind of non-materialistic form that is your experience, your spirit, whatever it is supposed
It's
to
like
be,
a
your mind.
consciousness,
Yeah,
maybe?
and there is actually a lot of problems with a lot of kinds of dualism. The only kind of dualism that I would ever come to believe would probably be a kind of dualism where the only thing that part is merely your experience, and it has no effect on your body or anything. Like, as in, like, there are questions that come to where you come to think, like, how would something in some higher ethereal realm that doesn't exist within space and time, how can it affect the decisions of something that exists within space and time? But I would be more likely to believe that ethereal thing would be more affected by the physical world than it affecting the physical world, because then we would see more manifestations of that. But the thing is that, a lot of these decisions that we make can very well be explained through purely, like, biological means, even though, like, a lot of it is like a mystery.
Right.
Like, one can very easily just explain it through the lens of a biology, and
So how would you relate that to reincarnation?
so with reincarnation, the whole kind of claim is that you would have to believe in some sort of form that is your experience. And I'm not necessarily saying consciousness, because consciousness ties in a lot of other meanings, like intelligence and stuff like that. As in, it's hard to really define what one means by an experience.
Yes.
But it's just essentially sort of a perspective that separates you from just merely a function of the universe. But maybe our
So if
perspective
you
is a
accept
function of
that,
the
you find
universe,
out that
or
that's a
something.
real thing,
Yeah.
then that would maybe bring you up on the scale to
Sure.
believe that whatever that thing is could
Sure.
be go into a different physical body.
Yeah, if someone were to convince me that there was something special, like there was something different, like something, that like transformed into different bodies, or like possibly there's like, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's monoism, kind of like the view that everything is one thing. So it could, like, if someone were to try and convince me something like a monoist view of the world, like, maybe it's not necessarily reincarnation, like life after death. Maybe it's more like, like we were always all the same kind of thing, and everything is like one, like I can't remember which philosopher it was, but he proposed that, the universe, God, and everything were just one entity, and nothing really truly changed because it was all just one thing, happening within itself, and so viewing the world through that lens, and I guess the sort of philosophical questions that come from it, is that, things happen as, because, they happen. There isn't really like a, it's just because that's what they are, and that's just how
Right.
they're meant to be, right? Because it is, yeah, it's a very, and a lot of
Can I throw in a
theological-
question?
Sure.
So you say if people could convince you of this, then, but what I'd really like to know is what would they have to provide to you?
Provide to me.
What kind of
would you
evidence
accept?
would be acceptable to you that would actually change your mind?
Well, usually the fact that these are even like significant parts of my mind that I'm willing to consider is mostly through because I haven't looked at the books, the manifestos of the people who like actually did this. And if I had someone who's well versed in it try and discuss with me, someone who really knew what they were talking about, try and give me either through ways of inductive reasoning,
So-
just like
Are philosophical arguments a good reason to believe something?
yes, but usually if when it comes to philosophical things, I tend to, that usually when it comes to some sort of philosophical framework, there are axioms, like kind of rules and laws that are just assumed, right? So like for example, with utilitarianism, there's the kind of axiom that pain is bad and pleasure is good.
Sure.
So it's like the best thing, obviously the most moral thing would be to cause the most pleasure and the least amount of pain, in general in the long run, considering like, for example, the trolley problem. A utilitarian would be like, yeah, pull the lever, only one person would die as opposed to, all these other people who wouldn't die. That's the utilitarian sort of view. And
So,
the reason why
Can I pause you for a second?
yeah.
Like, if you have 4 or 5 different contradicting philosophical arguments, how do you decide which one to go with?
For me,
Because there's so many different ones, right?
yeah.
And
So
what criteria
yes.
would you use?
So how do you narrow that
as
down?
I was saying, so usually it's defined, I think, based on the amount of arbitrariness in the philosophical.
How do
so
you define arbitrariness?
So frequently there are a lot of assumptions that kind of just are what they are, but they don't make sense in it of themselves, right?
Yeah.
So like for example, divine command theory, like so it's like
I'm not really into philosophy, so I don't know a lot of these terms,
okay, so-
which is cool that you do.
Disclaimer, He's finishing up a philosophy class right now.
Yeah, it's
So
really
that's
all
awesome.
this stuff
Yeah.
is fresh. In his
That's
mind.
so great.
okay, so
Go with it.
so divine
Just,
command theory is essentially
Don't
like
expect me to understand it.
it's okay. Well, yeah, that's why I'm going to explain it. So, divine command theory is essentially the sort of meta ethical sort of framework. It's like the ethics that go above ethics, like how we define ethics.
Yeah.
Is that this is true? Like there is absolute like just ethical truth.
You believe in
And-
the ultimate
and-
truth?
Yes, and divine command theory says that if there is some absolute truth, the reason why I believe in this truth is because it is ordained by God, like it is said by God, because God said so. It is therefore true, no questions asked.
And do you believe that?
No,
Jinx.
no. I consider myself to be a moral subjectivist, but I'm not against the idea of arguing against certain
Okay.
ideas. I feel like I feel like I don't believe in an absolute moral truth, but I believe that some, personally, that some morals have more merit than others. But I see that as a personal view, as in how I frame ethics isn't because there's some higher real law that's above all other things. It's because I view these things through my own experience, to have more merits than the others. So
Okay, so if you had a philosophical argument
okay.
that was good enough for you
Uh-huh.
to be convinced that reincarnation was a real thing,
Then I would have a more sure understanding.
then you'd go up from your 15.
Yeah, if there was, like, for example, I still have some unsureness as to whether, like, my experience is merely my brain thinking that it has experience. If it is the physical process itself that is my experience, which is cool, that's an interesting idea. But also, maybe there would be holes in that argument.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking, like, I know that a lot of the things that I think aren't exactly solid. Like,
Can I
there's
ask you a
obviously
question
some
related
question.
to that?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that reality is just a set certain way, just people perceive it differently?
Not necessarily. Um, there is some strict physical things that are happening, but things like morality are things we assign to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So what about like just not morality aside, just reality, the world we live in?
oh yes, that one.
Yeah.
The metaphysics and
Does-
all that.
Is there a real reality, but the way people perceive it can be different?
So we don't quite know. We can't
Who's
actually.
we?
You.
So
Speak for yourself.
Okay, so speak for my. So
You believe.
Because we don't know anything.
when I say that, I think that we can't quite know, because it's so, like, a lot of people have actually questioned this. Like, for example, I can't remember his name. He was a kind of a rationalist sort of philosopher, kind of that sort of questions, the world around him. I'm trying to find the word skepticism. He was an early skepticism. He practiced his own kind of skepticism, which was Cartesian skepticism. Descartes, it was Descartes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, of course, at the end, of course, there's obviously some flaws with his kind of specific kind of skepticism, because he ends up just believing the views that he had in the first place. But it actually was a useful thought experiment, in that when Descartes was thinking about reality, he created this thought experiment that everything could very well, because since everything is seen through the senses, what if, my senses are failing me? Like,
Right.
like, how can I really know that this reality is true? Like, kind of, sort of the Matrix before the Matrix.
Sure.
So, he proposed this thought experiment where there was, some sort of like evil demon genius something, this higher entity that was secretly trying to fool us and create this fake world that made us think that, it was,
Right.
it was real and everything like that.
I think I've heard of that, yeah.
So when he was pondering this, he was thinking, okay, well, there has to be, in order for me to actually, like, find out my views, I have to find out what I know for certain, like that can't be fooled, no matter how the world is or whatever, and he ended up, the only actual, like, in my opinion, the thing that he actually came to a conclusion to that I think is fair to say that you can know for certain is to think, therefore, you are. I think, therefore I am, right? He was the guy who coined that. So, and so, to a certain extent, there has to be some kind of reality. It could be a constructed reality. It could be, in our own minds and everything like that. It could be subjective to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But there has to be something, at least our minds, to a certain extent, there has to be some sort of basis.
So with that in mind, do you think a person is ever justified in believing something 100% or 0%? Can you ever be at the extremes?
No, I don't think anyone can. I think it just has to do with the nature of probability.
Mm-hmm.
See, because it's really interesting. So, I am a firm believer of kind of the scientific method and kind of the ways of reasoning that modern science is using. And actually, science has gone through a lot of different, like, philosophical, like, arguments for how it should be conducted, because of the different paradigms that happened over the periods of time.
Yeah.
And the sort of modern interpretation, one philosopher, I can't exactly remember what their... Yeah, sorry.
We really want to know what you feel, what you think, what you believe. Shut that off. Stop. We really want to know what you believe, not what others may or may not believe.
Okay. I believe that even when you when something has been true and has been confirmed to be true, and every observation has proven it to be true.
What do you mean by true?
As in, like, okay, so whenever you try to explain a certain phenomenon, and you try to find out what sort of reason, and so then with that reason you can use it to predict future like events and everything like that. So
if you go with like gravity, for example, would you say gravity is
Yeah.
a true principle?
yeah, through means and experimentation, as in it's like it's been observed, and it's the theory has been proven enough to the point where you can accurately predict what's going to happen tomorrow, and everything like that. But the thing is that in science, nothing is really like usually 100%, because just because something has happened doesn't necessarily mean that it will always happen, because there could very well
What
be
if I
some-
pick this up, my Coke can, and I let go and it just hovers in midair? What
It's-
would that tell us about gravity?
it would either tell us that there's something that's affecting gravity.
Doing a magic trick?
It could
Or-
be a magic trick, it could be anything.
Or-
There's
But I'm not, but yeah.
well, yeah.
If that were to happen, wouldn't we have to go back and look at our understanding of how gravity works?
Yeah, possibly, if that were an actual, phenomenon. And maybe that wouldn't be a thing of gravity. Maybe that would have
Maybe.
something
It
to
could
do
be
with
your
Yeah.
superpower.
Could be
It
something
could be
with
a
a
magnetic
cocaine. Could have something to
something,
do. It could be anything, right? So usually when that.
But all of those things would be on the table to look at, right?
Exactly,
To
yeah.
explore and to.
Exactly. So
We're not going to say, well, God did it. Right?
yeah. So
And some people would react differently. So we can say, these people would say, I don't believe in gravity anymore, and these people this. But again, we want to
Clearly
know.
gravity doesn't
We want to
work.
know, how does that change your belief if you just watch that happen? Would it change your belief? Would it change your confidence level if she demonstrated to you, I'm going to let go of this and it's going to stay right here? What would that do to you and your beliefs?
I would come to assume that it's probably a trick,
Okay.
because it's like, so the reason why I come
What if there's some really good philosophical arguments that showing that gravity no longer works?
philosophy can't really be applied in that way, in my opinion, because it's like so
It can be
because it's like
used in some areas,
'cause-
but not other areas.
well, yeah, because philosophy concerns the things that can't be epistemologically, because it has to do pure.
Nobody knows what epistemological means.
But even for you, philosophy alone is not enough to
No.
change
That's why I'm
your-
asking, like, yeah, if philosophy is enough to change your 35, 15,
So-
if it can change that,
this is-
can it also change?
So here's why
science.
I have to say that it's a philosophical thing, because I
But
don't.
again, we want to know what you think, not
No, of course.
Okay.
So here's what I think. I think philosophy is just, it has to do concerning with the certain constructions of the mind. What is moral, what we define as certain things, the value that we assign to certain things. And the thing is that whole question about being reincarnated after you die, it's not something that you can really scientifically find out, because that's a whole different kind of question. Like that's a question that concerns something purely based on what we assign to it. It isn't like a reincarnation. I don't think is really a phenomenon that can be really known through means of mere observation, because we can't really know things like that. Things like the afterlife or whatever. Because
Should
it's
we
just-
believe things that can't really be known?
Sure, you can believe something that can't really be known. It's a matter, but since these
Do
concepts.
you believe in things that can't be known?
Yeah, to a certain extent, but I'm not sure in them, because if they can't really be known, then how do I really know for sure? Like I can have some sort of a vague, like, yeah, I think this might be true, but I can't really know, truly. I
Well,
don't.
and isn't that why you went from like what'd you say, 35%, and then it went down to
Yes.
25, and then 15? like the more you started thinking about it, the more you realize my confidence level based on the evidence
Yeah.
isn't really warranted to be at this high.
Yeah.
Like maybe I'll just suck it down, right?
Yeah.
So but it could move. You're open to it moving
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you
I'm-
find out more
I'm
or
open.
learn something that
I'm
makes
open.
it. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. You ready to
Good
join our,
job.
our church now?
Yeah, that's super. You've thought a lot about philosophy, which is cool. I have not. But,
you have not.
No,
Well,
it's too meta for me.
What's your what would be
I'm based.
the kind of thing that you
She answered. She asked the question. What are you doing?
No, you can ask any questions you
No,
want. Yeah,
no, I like
this can go
asking
both ways.
questions.
That's fine. Yeah.
I like asking questions too. Asking
Yeah.
questions is fun because I'm not really sure in things. So
Yeah.
so for me to answer questions, it feels more interesting if I ask questions.
I like, hearing other people's answers. I would say when I was in the church, I was at 100%. I knew it was true. I would have bet my whole life, my soul. I did. I lived my whole life and gave it all to the church. I raised my kids in the church. I did everything because I thought the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was the gospel truth in every sense of the word. I thought God was real. I believed all of it, like to the full extent. I taught lessons. I made my kids go to
All in.
seminary. Yeah, I did every single thing. And going from that 100% mark down to 99 was the biggest step for me. Just like having that crack a little bit, like, I'm going to think about this. And then it went from like 99 to like 1 in a matter of hours.
Wow.
Because
what was that crack? What was
it
that
was
thing? What was that? What was that thing
Life
that made you-
changing.
That
Wow.
made you doubt it.
It
You know
was.
what I envision when you
Yeah.
say that? Remember those little things that we used to, they look like a tablet and you write on with this magic pen and when you're done,
Oh, yeah,
you do
you-
that and it erases?
yeah, the
That must
magic
have been
screen
what it
thing.
felt like to you.
It was devastating.
Yeah.
Because once you
Gone.
go down, you can't, it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
Gone.
I tried to hold on to
Wow.
it, and I knew, like,
Wow.
that's why I didn't question it for so long, because I didn't want to know.
It's a huge price to pay.
Yeah.
What
I had to
what
change
kind
my
of
whole life.
opened the sort of Pandora's box of
Yeah, it was kind of a long, progressive story, but I was, I had 2 choices to make. And it was God is the biggest asshole I've ever met, or he doesn't exist.
Wow.
Because there was just so much going on with health issues with my kids and just so many different things and abuse and just all kinds of nonsense. And I'm like, if God wants this for me and this is the life that is supposed to be my special plan by this loving Heavenly Father, like, I can't get behind that. I can't worship a God who would do that to one of his children.
He's testing
Like,
your faith.
Yeah, and if one of my children came to me and was like crying and begging, like daily, all day, every day, like, please help me, please get me out of this, please, anything, like, give me a sign, I would do whatever I could for my kids to like make sure that they knew they were loved and appreciated. And I wasn't getting any of that from God, so I had to accept God's a dick or God's not real. And I said, well, what if God is not real? And that's where it went from 100 to 99. I just asked myself the question, what if God's not real? What would that be like? And then I started looking for confirmation, like, of course he's real, don't be silly. And I would look for confirmation, like, oh, look there's a beautiful butterfly. That's God telling me to, no, it's not. No, it isn't. That's just a butterfly. Butterflies exist. And it just went so fast after that. And I'm like, okay, if there's no God, there's no Joseph Smith, there's like, he made that up. The Book of Mormon is lies.
yeah.
So
He was
it went,
literally a treasure hunter.
yeah. And then, after I left the church, I started digging into the history and the information behind it, which is just insane.
My mother used to say, Joseph Smith was on LSD.
On LDS.
That would explain a lot.
Yeah.
It really would.
No, you
Yeah.
could've been.
Yeah. I
So
tend
it's
to
tough.
view religions through like sociological means, as in their social structures created by ideology, you know,
Yes.
driven by you know, human systems that were established in societies and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I understand the function, and I understand the comfort value, and how people need that and want to hold on to it. I get it. I get it so strong.
Yeah, my biggest regret after leaving was I lost the wonder. Where is the wonder now?
Oh, you left the
Mystery.
Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
Now that your eyes were open.
Yeah. Well, you go from having all the answers, all the truth, to knowing everything, to just the rug's pulled out from under you, and you're like, I have to question everything in my life now. All my relationships, all like, why I'm wearing these clothes? Like, how many earrings do I have in my ear? Like, how do I raise children without making them go to, like, every single aspect. Can I drink coffee? Like, is coffee actually okay? I don't know. Like,
Do you?
I do. I love coffee
Okay.
now. Yeah, but I didn't have a cup of coffee till I was 45 years old. So,
Wow.
I mean, now I love it. But
What's
All of that
the,
stuff.
What's the necklace?
the necklace, oh, it's the serotonin molecule.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Lewis structure
Wow.
of serotonin. Don, are you up for one? You guys
Yeah, if
gotta
you have
get
time.
going. Okay, do you want to pick one? or
I
do
don't.
you wanna-
I'm not. I don't have a schedule.
Okay.
Sure, I can pick one.
Yeah, and apparently my
It's gonna be
parking
random.
isn't
I'm
going to
gonna
run
let
out.
the spirit guide me here.
Holy Ghost, pick one for you. Which one does he want you to have?
Yeah. Spanking is beneficial to children. That's
Oh.
a tough one.
You want to pick a different one?
No, that's fine.
You want to go for it?
Sure.
Okay, so the claim is, say it nice and loud.
Spanking is beneficial to children.
Okay, spanking is beneficial for children. What's your confidence level that that's true? That this actually spanking benefits children?
Let's put that at 10%.
10%?
Do you mind if I throw questions in along with you?
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Just so I
As,
can
as
sort of
long as Don
practice
doesn't
here?
mind.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
sometimes
let's,
it gets overwhelming.
let's start with a couple of definitions.
That's
First
what
of
I
all,
was gonna do, yeah.
let's start with how do you define spanking?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because that makes a difference.
Yeah. Am I okay to go into my past? I think that would require
Yeah.
some.
Whatever you think is important. Yeah.
Just to
Okay.
define what that means to you.
I've witnessed lots of spankings
Oh.
in lots of different ways. There are many definitions.
So you have opinions
Depending-
on this. Okay.
I do have
Interesting.
opinions. And okay, so just for a little background, because I've never explained this before, except, before we started the recording. I was in a cult for 17 years. The leader was abusive, and he encouraged his followers to
Like physically abusive?
physically abusive, and he encouraged
And
his followers to keep
others,
their
I'm sure.
children in line. And it was implied that we should follow his example. And that nearly broke me.
Do you think that he was using spanking to keep people in line?
That's why I said there are many levels of that.
Yeah.
Because he would chastise in many different ways, and many of them involved physical contact, being stricken, smited,
Hit?
and
Swatted?
yeah, and he would always be using the example. Don't you notice that after you've gone through this experience, don't you feel all the guilt is gone, is washed away?
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's
No, that was his thing. He thought that the scripture, reprove betimes with sharpness. That was his motto, I guess.
wow.
And he felt like, if you pay the price for your transgression, then you've cleaned it up.
Okay.
Even if that transgression was only not paying attention during worship meeting, or interrupting him when he's
So
talking to
transgression
someone.
as defined by him.
Yes.
Okay. And then you have to pay the price
Mhm.
to make amends
Mhm.
for this transgression.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So spanking, sometimes it's been with a paddle, sometimes it's been with a leather strap, sometimes it's been with a hand.
So it can
Leaving
be
marks?
it can be various methods, but it is. I
It
don't want to put
is-
words in your mouth. It's hitting.
Yeah, it's hitting, and sometimes on the backside, sometimes on the face.
At what age levels are we talking?
Starting, I don't know, 6 months.
Babies.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Okay,
That's
so
insane.
hitting using various methods. Any sounds to me like pretty much any part of the body is open, but these all are incorporated into your definition
Yes.
of spanking. The second word then I'd like you to define for us, as you see it anyway, is beneficial. So when it says spanking is beneficial for children, what would you call beneficial or benefiting
Yeah.
a child?
Yeah. And that definition has changed in my mind too.
And
Yeah.
again, I'm not saying,
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to say when spanking is beneficial. I just want you to define what you think is beneficial, so we've got two terms
Yeah.
for
yeah.
form the frame here.
And then we'll get a confidence number.
So back then,
Okay,
beneficial was it's bringing you closer to God
okay.
by eliminating your guilt.
Whose guilt? Not a
The
6-month-old
child.
baby's guilt, right?
I guess so, because he can't communicate that he's feeling guilty or not. All he knows is that, ooh, the spanking's done, relief.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You said back then, so it
That
sounds
was
like
back
you've
then.
changed
Yeah,
your
oh, yeah.
definition.
Oh,
Okay.
Now, beneficial is what will help you achieve your goals.
Help you meaning the child?
The child.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so hitting various places on the body using various methods is beneficial to children, meaning it will help the child achieve its goals. Okay, so now let's go with the confidence level.
Okay.
But also it could be reinterpreted by somebody else to say it's beneficial if that brings the child closer to God,
Sure.
right?
Yeah,
Is
some
that kind of
people-
the reasoning behind it?
That's some people's reasoning.
To help them.
Um,
I'm helping this child. It's beneficial for me to hit this little kid if it brings them closer to God.
Right. No, that's not my.
No, I'm not
my
saying it
opinion.
is. And
But yeah, that was something that I was indoctrinated to believe. Over time, it didn't like change all at once. Like at one point, it was like, well, if that child's being really snarky and you have absolute control and you calmly say, if this hurts you more than me, then then it's okay. And then later it's, well, if that child rushes out into the street, then and I have to like save their life. The only way to teach them to make the lesson stick is to spank them.
right.
And now it's like there are
Make the
better
lesson stick,
ways.
meaning that it would
So
help
they-
achieve the child's goals.
So they don't run out in the street. That is beneficial for the child to not get hit by a car.
Yeah, and now it's like there are better ways.
There
Be
are other
creative.
ways.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your confidence level? What's your 0 to 100? How confident are you that spanking is beneficial for children?
Based upon your definitions of spanking and
Your
beneficial.
current understanding.
I'm still at 10%. I've given this a lot of thought, and some people do it. Some people do it, and their kids end up pretty decent. I don't know how to do it in that way, so I don't do it. But I'm not going to tell them they can't if their kids are, if their kids are flourishing.
Yeah. Is there anything you could learn that would raise it up from the 10%? Any evidence you could see or any information you could come across?
This wouldn't be an ethical experiment, but if the science.
Well, yeah, we're hypothetically speaking.
Out of
Yeah.
10,000
Yeah.
children, some of them not spanked,
yeah.
and some of them being spanked very regularly.
Daily, like
Yes.
whatever the, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if the science had been done,
Yeah,
and not only, and the definition of beneficial by the child, the victim, was favorable to that experience, then, you know, if the science came in and said, yes, these children, when they were adults, look back on that and they said, yeah, I'm glad that my dad beat
yeah.
me.
So
wonder
if
if
there
that
were
could be done.
scientific
Like there's
experiments,
communities that do that, right?
if there were scientific experiments that in the end were confirmed by maybe an adult child looking back and saying that helped me achieve my goals,
Well,
that might increase your confidence.
Yeah, a little bit, but I don't see that.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hypothetical.
Is there anything you could learn or discover that would bring it down from 10%?
Those same children, when they're adults, looking back honestly and going, I could have been this, and regret.
Yeah. Do you know anybody like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I know a lot of people, but I also know a lot of people who would say, yeah, I really needed that. It straightened me out. So it's mixed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tricky.
This may not be a good question, but I'm going to throw it out there
Go
anyway.
for it. Yeah.
So then, do you think that, because you say you know children on both sides, who, or adults who would look back as child, were subjected to spanking, and some will say it was beneficial and some would say it wasn't. Do you think that this the truth of this statement might actually be dependent upon the child?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So it could be
Subjective.
beneficial for some children, but not other children.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I wouldn't know how to do it though. Put the child up for adoption, and maybe some new parent would teach him right. No.
Yeah.
No, that's not the
It
answer.
would be completely unethical. You can't study something like that
Yeah.
in a scientific way. You just can't
Yeah.
separate twins at birth and then
Right.
abuse one and then you
Yeah, they're just
Not
like, it worked
possible.
for my dad, it'll work for me. People caught in a
Yeah.
cycle.
I don't have any more questions on that. Kind of feels like we got to the bottom of that one.
yeah.
That was easy.
I feel like it's so sad.
I'm sorry, I'm remiss. I should be quoting a dozen philosophers.
I
at
don't know
length.
why I have the tendency to do that. That's actually something that happens a lot, where I always try to give background information.
Yeah.
And I
It's on your mind.
There's always
I get
like
it.
somehow I get sidetracked.
Yeah.
Always, like I don't directly answer the
Tangents.
question.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's so funny. It's so funny. The reason why I bring those up is because it brings up the validity of what I'm saying. So like, and that I know that there are other perspectives and why I'm coming to the conclusion, but then I can sometimes just get too lost in the explanation.
But this is a really good practice for something like
Yeah,
this. It
like
helps
you
you
could-
focus your
yeah,
thoughts and
You
helps
could run
you.
for office. You're already good at filibuster.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm telling you, I can.
Yeah, and
like,
be able to
yeah.
answer questions like concisely and directly is like a skill that it really needs to
Yeah.
be learned. And you're doing great. So like
think-
that was really fantastic.
I think it's possible.
You
It's
guys
just
are
I
all
just
really
need to
good.
like focus on
Yeah.
it. Just be
Yeah.
like, just to remember. Oh yeah, I have to answer this like concisely and not go into this 1 hour long explanation
Well,
about it.
And that's hard to do
Answer
for a lot
the
of people.
question. And really, I think the thing is that the questions were applied to you. We want to know what you think, and you were giving us a lot of alternative
Exactly.
ways that other people think, but we really
Yeah.
wanted to know, yeah, but
How
what do
I
you
thought.
think,
What does
and what
Daniel
what would
think?
change what you're thinking? How do you come to believe this? What criteria do you use? What would
Yeah.
change that? Not all the possibilities
And I
of things
think-
that could be.
We were asking why questions. So tell me if I'm wrong here, but I'm assuming you're thinking, well, this is why I think this is because I've read about this philosopher and I've read these theories and I've read these,
Maybe.
and this is kind of how
Maybe.
it adds up in my mind. No?
Maybe it also might be just a part of how I'm processing things.
Mm-hmm.
So I just run through what I know.
Yeah.
Also,
Which is great.
Sometimes I can just not be sure, and so then I
Absolutely.
think.
Yeah,
So then I
yeah.
think,
Yeah.
okay, well let's
Join the
run
club.
through
Yeah.
what
Not
other
sure all the
That
time.
makes sense. I do that in my head.
Yeah.
Some people do it out loud.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel
you
like I
know-
have more questions on this, but I can't put them into words right now. So, but if I think of other questions, I'm going to come back to that. If
Okay.
That's okay. Yeah. What were you going to say, Deb?
Jordan Peterson, who is a psychologist and a
Oh,
lightning
okay,
rod,
Jordan Peterson.
he says we outsource the problem of our sanity, that we, as we're speaking, we're thinking. That's how we think, by speaking, by conversing.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly natural for you to be going through your thought process by thinking out loud with other people.
Yeah.
Some people do it more than others. So actually that's kind of true. Our thought process,
Yeah.
from what I know, is sort of meant and organized in a way that's meant to communicate to other people, because
Right.
that's how we just kind of evolutionarily evolved to be.
And how many times do you start saying something and you're like, wait, no, that's not what I meant at all. Like, I don't actually think that. But I didn't realize it until I said it out loud.
Right.
And now that I'm processing it a little more, here's what I
Kinda.
mean. You don't do that?
But
I do
not
that
like
all
a
the time.
complete
Oh, I-
contradiction. It's
Yeah.
always something like, oh, well, this is a slightly modified version of what I just said,
Yeah.
or like a more modified version. It's usually like, yeah, I could change my view, but usually I try to incorporate the change in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Try and signal that this is a change in my thought process, and I'm like, oh wait, actually, no, now that I'm starting to think about it, it might be a little different.
Right. Which is great. Like, I love how thoughts and ideas evolve as you share them and discuss them with other people who have different opinions. So I think that's why this is really important to do, and like help other people have these types of conversations where you're asking these questions. Like, why is this important?
Yeah.
Right.
Also,
To you, yeah.
to comment on Jordan Peterson, for context, he is actually a very controversial political figure.
He has become that
I'm
way.
familiar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Jordan Peterson. Quite an interesting guy. I wouldn't say politically I agree with him, although there are some ideas that are just fine of his. Like, for example, he made this one self-help book that really doesn't have anything to do with politics. And it's, as far as a self-help book is concerned, it's all right, you know. As far as, you know, it says what a lot of self-help books say, and it, you know, it has a lot of correct information in certain respects, but I don't necessarily agree with his sort of philosophical or way of viewing political or sociological effects in a society. I think it's,
Right.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, I agree with that point specifically, though, that, you know, people think
We
as
think
if it's,
out loud.
Yeah, we think out loud.
And that's how we're processing. I have a roommate who, it's like everything I say she wants to take as the finished product.
Oh.
And it's like, no, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm
Yeah.
formulating this.
Yeah, just you know, just let,
It's fluid, it's dynamic,
Just
it
let-
moves, it
yeah,
changes,
yeah,
and it's
let-
okay. You don't have to stick to something.
She's just like, you're not going to say that, are you?
Yeah.
It's just like, this is a frame. I haven't gotten to the words yet.
I'm thinking about that.
yeah.
Does anyone want to try asking me questions before we go?
Yes,
You
yes,
wanna
yes,
try
yes,
it?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
I'll pick a claim.
Oh, I have to tell you, when I was in South Dakota,
Yeah.
I got this shirt. I saw the Bigfoot one.
Oh,
I got
yeah.
this shirt. It is Bigfoot leading a unicorn with a jackalope on its back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
I need a sticker of that for my
My
laptop.
roommate did not get
Okay,
it.
the claim that I chose is women should dress modestly.
Ooh, okay, so what would you
Yeah.
say is your confidence interval?
I am.
Like, to what extent? To what extent do you believe that if you
Believe that's true.
assuming like like how much do you believe that?
Yeah.
To what
The
extent?
claim
Focus on concise.
that women should dress modestly, I would put that at about a 2%, maybe out of 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ask for definitions.
Definitions.
Well, yeah. Okay. So what do you define as modestly?
Okay, can we start with women?
Sure.
I-
What do you define? Okay.
Yeah,
Sure. I guess that's. Yeah,
I
that's
might
very
kind of
broad.
change that to all people, because I don't know, I'm a little on the gender spectrum. Like wherever you fall on that is fine in my mind.
Yeah.
So I don't care what you identify
Okay,
as or
okay.
whatever. I think all people should dress however they want. I don't really care specifically for women. So modestly, that was your question, right? How do you define modestly? I define it as like how the church defines it, just because that's how I was raised. So like covering up shoulders and knees and up to the neck. And I guess if we were like Islam or something, we would define it differently,
They
right?
cover every bit
Or
of skin.
or the FLDS or different groups define it differently. So 2%,
2%.
2 out of 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think though that there would be a certain amount of expectation for how one should dress in certain situations, as far as modesty goes? So like, you say that you think people should be able to dress however they want to dress, but of course there might be exceptions as far as expectations go. Like for example,
Mm-hmm.
you want to go to a business meeting, but you don't exactly want to go to a business
In the
meeting
workplace, maybe.
yeah,
An
in the
office
workplace.
setting.
But do you think that's necessarily because you agree with those customs, or do you think it's because it's just enforced and it's like, okay, well that's what they want?
It's like the dress code.
The
that
dress
we
code,
all
it's like,
follow.
well,
Yeah.
it's like, if they define that as the dress code, I don't know, I guess that's fine. But do you,
You're
do you
asking
Yeah.
her a question. You're not-
yeah, well, I'm trying to define what the question
Clarifying.
is. To clarify it. So
Yeah,
like,
it's a good question.
yeah, do you agree
In
with those
certain
dress
situations.
codes? Do you agree with them, or do you just follow them? Do you not agree with them?
You've got just one question.
Sorry. I like saying
Yeah,
multiple
I know, I
questions.
do
like
that
an
too.
open-ended-
Like I really have to try hard not to ask 6 questions at a time,
Yeah.
because I think of more. A dress code for like a school setting or business setting, I don't know. I haven't thought about that a lot. And how it relates to modesty. Like, because sometimes you don't want your clothing to be a distraction. But does it have to be this conforming, like, do you have to wear a skirt that goes down to your knees as opposed to 2 inches above your knees? Like, is that, I don't know where that line would be. I think there's appropriate dress and appropriate in different situations, probably. Like, I'm not going to wear a bikini to the office, even on a hot day.
So you've made a
But I
couple
don't
of
know.
statements that I want to clarify. One is you said people should dress however they want to. So given the most lax circumstance, is there ways to dress, in your opinion, that are not acceptable?
Not acceptable.
Not, they say should. So,
Yeah.
in your opinion, is there any minimum? I mean, is there something a way that a person could dress that is just like, no, not in any circumstance?
I don't think I would ever feel comfortable telling somebody what they should or should not wear. Like, I can't think of any circumstances.
Okay.
Like even school, work,
Okay.
because I'm not them. I don't know what they feel comfortable in. I don't know how they want to present themselves. Like, I feel like I want to support people in wherever they are and whatever decisions they want to make. Like, if they want to walk around topless, go for it. Yeah, good for
So-
you.
Yeah. So do you believe that businesses and schools and churches should be dictating what dress codes and levels of modesty?
And like enforcing them. I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of, if I'm a business owner, what would I want my employees to wear? And maybe like a a retail situation, or I don't know. I have to think on that one. Churches definitely not.
Yeah.
Do you think that they have the authority to enforce that?
They who?
Okay, so organizations, so business, like he said, businesses, churches, schools, etc.
Well, a lot of places have uniforms, right? And they can say, this is our required uniform. But that's not really about modesty necessarily. It's about cohesive organization, right? And trying to present an image because we're all wearing this uniform.
But you would agree to a certain extent, like dress code policies in schools are about modesty.
Are they?
Well,
they end up being.
They end up being
yeah.
about modesty because it's like,
Right. No spaghetti straps.
yeah, you know, like, because it's like, you know, I guess their end goal is distraction, but sometimes
Yeah.
I feel like actually they're not, you know, like, because it's like sometimes it just feels like the school administrators enforce this dress code policy because it's what's modest, like what's expected.
Yeah.
Considering our,
And it's
so,
kind of, it's culturally based too, right?
So,
like
yeah,
certain
yeah.
cultures.
So to get what I'm, I kind of lost what my question was.
I have a question.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, go ahead.
Should RuPaul be able to dress the same way in a business meeting?
Hell yeah. Why not? Like, what's the downside? He does his thing.
Distraction?
She does.
I don't have an opinion
I'm
on
not
that,
real
but
familiar
I
with
thought it was like
RuPaul,
the
but-
extreme example. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't care.
very
Like,
very flamboyant.
go for it, man.
In one of your answers, you used the word conforming. So
Yeah.
it sounds to me, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, it sounds to me that you have I hate to use the word issue, but you don't like the conformity requirement, a requirement to conform, and that your opinions on this matter have a lot to do with that requirement to conform. Would that be a true statement?
Yeah, I think it's the kind of the cultural gender norms, I think I don't see a purpose for those. Like, I don't know why those exist. If I have a little girl who wants to wear typical boy clothing, I don't care. Or the other way around. If boys want to wear a skirt or have long hair, like, I don't know why any of that matters at all. Like, any of the gender stuff. And I don't, as far as modesty goes, there's such a double standard, especially in Utah and Mormon culture, that women are given this responsibility to like control men's thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's just, it puts all this undue pressure on girls and women. And I would like to like kind of, I know this is probably not ever going to happen, but like everybody has a body, like body parts are body parts, like just why do they have to be so overly sexualized and like focused on, and like why can't we just wear whatever we want whenever we want, and men can control their own thoughts and women can control their own thoughts, like, and not put other people's thinking on what I'm wearing. Like, why I have a 17-year-old daughter. Why shouldn't she be able to wear whatever she's comfortable in?
Sure.
You know.
So coming from that, do you think that these institutions, the ones previously mentioned, have the authority, should have the authority to enforce
Like a
those?
school, or
Well, yeah, you can tell which ones you think should or should not have the authority, but this is a general question.
I think a private business can make, I don't know, requirements or guidelines for dress, maybe, for their employees. And then, I don't know, like, doesn't the marketplace play out how, like, if they let their employees dress however they want, like, is that, maybe that'll hurt them financially, and they'll, I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know.
So you do see that there are some circumstances where some sort of a body, an employer or something like that, should be allowed to require certain standards.
And then that particular employee maybe can decide, is this a place I want to work because these are the clothing requirements. Or what if you work for a strip club or whatever and you walk around in panties all day? Like,
Yeah.
so what? I mean,
Yeah.
that's our dress code.
Right?
So
Right? Makes perfect sense.
I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But that's their dress code.
What about schools, the decision to put uniforms?
Uniforms in schools?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To like prevent bullying of the poor kids by the rich kids.
Everyone's wearing the same
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
I
My kids did uniforms
good
for a
idea?
couple years. I loved it as a parent because just buy 10 pairs of pants,
Yeah.
10 shirts, and we're good.
So
But
that's a good thing then.
kids hated it mostly.
But do you think
Convenience-wise, it was
Sorry.
fantastic. Yeah, go ahead.
so you're saying it is convenient. Also at the same time, I'm thinking you would have to buy new pairs of clothes on top of the clothes that you already have.
For a uniform?
I think so. I don't think it's like the first clothes that they ever had was a uniform,
Right,
right?
right.
So I'm just thinking, would there be some more simplicity in just allowing them to wear the clothes that they already have to school? Like I bet
Yeah.
maybe there is some convenience that comes with uniforms, but also at the same time, I bet there'd be some convenience taken away. You have to
Yeah.
buy new uniforms.
It's a
and stuff.
trade-off.
Yeah.
And I think that's a separate issue than modesty, though,
Yeah.
completely. But yeah,
Yeah.
So initially, I think you said that you believed this statement, women should dress modestly. You gave yourself a 1% confidence in that?
I think it's a 2,
It was
but
a
yeah,
2.
Okay,
close
2%.
enough.
Okay, 2%. So very low confidence there. And in speaking with you, it sounds like if we were to ask you what would change that, what we seem to have determined here is not what would change that, but what circumstances would that confidence level change?
I thought
would
of
that be
a
correct?
situation that would bring up my percentage up
Okay,
higher.
what would that be?
And I think if you're in such a patriarchal society or community that women who show ankles or whatever get raped or attacked or stoned or whatever because they're considered to be dressing immodestly, I would like for them to be able to dress however they want, but I would probably encourage them to cover up just for their own safety.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So that almost leads us to then,
Yeah.
it's really more the definition on should
sucks for
is on
them,
is on
yeah.
should, like under what circumstances.
Yeah, if we're just talking about Salt Lake City summer 2022, I think
Nothing's going to change the 2% for you.
I'm at that low level. I
Okay.
don't care what people wear.
Okay.
Yeah. But in a different situation, yeah, it could be different. I mean, you shouldn't wear that outside. You will,
Freeze to death?
yeah, in Salt Lake for sure. Yeah. Cool. You guys are good at this. This has been fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn off the recording. Hopefully it's still going. Yeah.